Arthur Lee Hemlock was the man no one suspected, the helpful neighbor, the quiet bookstore clerk. He blended in so well, he became invisible, moving through life with a disarming normalcy. But beneath that friendly exterior was the bookshelf killer, a predator who stalked his victims with chilling precision. His crimes were methodical, ritualistic, each victim marked by an obscure poetry book left at the scene. The community searched for a monster in the shadows, never realizing he was hiding in plain sight. Arthur's duality was his greatest weapon, a man who could discuss poetry by day and plan horror by night. The investigation dragged on for nearly a decade, as police chased a phantom who left only dread and cryptic clues. All the while, Arthur nodded politely to detectives, paid his bills, and shelved books. Evil, it turned out, didn't always wear a monstrous mask. Sometimes, it wore a familiar, friendly one, making it all the more dangerous. The bookshelf killer was a master of disguise, both in the bookstore and in the shadows, and no one saw him coming. To understand the killer, we must look at the boy. Arthur's childhood was marked by emotional neglect, an only child in a silent house, invisible to his distant parents. He learned to observe rather than connect, watching people like a scientist studying a foreign species. This detachment became the foundation of his psyche. As he grew, control became his comfort, organizing his room, trapping insects, rehearsing dominance in small, secret ways. At school, he was a ghost, quiet, unremarkable, forgotten. Inside, a fantasy life took root. Power, manipulation, and the ability to go unnoticed. He read voraciously, not for stories, but to decode human behavior. The lonely boy was slowly replaced by a calculating mind. Arthur was building a blueprint for a life lived in the shadows. The transformation was invisible until it was too late. The bookshelf killer was born long before his first crime. Arthur's confession came not with drama, but with chilling calm. Brought in for a minor charge, he sat in the interrogation room polite and almost bored. Detectives Miller and Russo were ready to let him go, until Miller asked, "You like books, don't you?" Arthur's mask slipped. He began softly. The first one was in the fall of 15. Her name was Sarah. She had a red scarf. He recounted the murder with terrifying clarity, no emotion, just fact. The details were precise. The color of the leaves, the streetlights, the Poe book he left behind. The detective sat in stunned silence as Arthur cataloged his crimes like inventory. He wasn't seeking forgiveness or boasting, just stating what he'd done. "She shouldn't have been walking alone so late," he said, as if danger was something external. The horror was in his detachment. The bookshelf killer was not a monster in the dark. He was the man next door, calmly recounting his atrocities. The confession was just the beginning. The mask was off. The interrogation room became Arthur's stage. Over days, he controlled the pace, savoring the detective's attention. For a man who'd felt invisible, this was validation. "You want to know about the second one?" he'd tease, making them wait. Detective Miller. "Why, Maria?" Arthur. "She was predictable. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she left the gym at 8:15. It was easy." Detective Russo. "Did you feel anything?" Arthur. "Satisfaction. Like finishing a difficult crossword, everything fits." He described his crimes as intellectual exercises, not acts of violence. His victims were problems to solve, not people. The books he left were his signature, his way of displaying his art. The interrogation room wasn't a place of reckoning, it was his gallery. And Arthur was proud of his work. Arthur described stalking as a craft, his observation phase. He learned his victims' routines, their favorite coffee shops, the songs they played, the secrets they whispered to pets. He collected these details, building a complete picture before striking. "You learn so much just by watching," he told detectives. He blended into the background, a ghost in their world. The thrill wasn't in violence, but in the power of knowing he controlled their fate. "The best hunters are patient," he said. "You wait for the perfect moment." For Arthur, that moment was when his target was most vulnerable, most alone. The stalking, the planning, the ritual, it was all about control. His victims belonged to him long before he made his move. The bookshelf killer's true obsession was domination, not death, and the hunt was his ritual. A pattern emerged. Arthur's victims were creatures of habit. Their routines made them easy targets for a patient observer. "Routine is a cage," he said. "It makes you predictable." He exploited this flaw with ruthless efficiency, turning the city into his chessboard. The books he left were chosen with care, each a symbolic link to the victim or the crime scene. It was his artistic flourish, a way to impose order on chaos. For Arthur, murder was a performance. Selection, stalking, and the final placement of the book. His victims were unwilling actors in a script he wrote and directed. The ritual gave him mastery, filling the emptiness inside. The pattern wasn't just method, it was his reason for being. The bookshelf killer perfected his craft, one ritual at a time, and the city never saw the pattern until it was too late. Arthur's composure finally cracked, not over violence but a simple question. Detective Miller asked about Liam's mother, who kept her son's room unchanged, hoping for his return. For the first time, Arthur faltered. His gaze dropped, his jaw tightened. The question bypassed his defenses, touching a raw nerve. When he spoke, his voice was strained. "She shouldn't have to do that. His room, it should be changed." It was a fragmented response, but the first flicker of empathy he'd shown. The image of a grieving mother disturbed him in a way his crimes never had. The interrogation shifted. Arthur grew agitated, his answers evasive. The story of Liam's murder was no longer a tale of control. The real-world consequences had contaminated his perfect memory. For a moment, the hunter saw the human wreckage he'd left behind, and the mask slipped, revealing the damaged man beneath the monster. After the crack, Arthur's confessions poured out. He admitted to 12 murders over 9 years, far more than police suspected. He led detectives to cold cases, connecting forgotten disappearances to his name. Some early crimes lacked his signature, committed before he perfected his ritual. They were practice, he said, disappointed by their lack of professionalism. The scope of his crimes was staggering, a silent predator moving undetected for nearly a decade. The books were used in only 7 of the 12 murders. The rest were made to look like accidents. His confession was a Rosetta Stone for years of unsolved cases. Arthur was a chameleon, adapting his methods to avoid detection. The final tally was a grim testament to his patience and cunning. The quiet bookstore clerk was one of the most prolific killers the state had ever seen, and his story forced everyone to question what evil really looks like. The case of Arthur Hemlock holds up a dark mirror to society. How can someone so normal commit such evil? Often there are no obvious signs. Serial killers like Arthur are masters of camouflage, mimicking emotions and blending in. Understanding them isn't about finding a single answer. It's about untangling a web of neglect, fantasy, and detachment. Many begin with childhoods devoid of connection, growing into adults who see others as objects. Their fantasy lives blur into reality, and the compulsion to act becomes overwhelming. Can we prevent such tragedies? Early intervention and connection help, but some are simply wired differently. They lack empathy, the glue of society. Spotting them before they act is nearly impossible. Arthur's story is a sobering reminder. Darkness can hide behind a friendly smile. His confessions offer a rare glimpse into a mind without conscience. We study these cases not for curiosity, but for the insights they provide. We look into the abyss to understand, and to protect ourselves from the monsters who hide in plain sight.